Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. We're going to take a look back at the Grade 2 $1.25 million Charlestown Classic right here on Weekend Wrap. They break from the gate. This is a wet track, but rain or shine, we know that the number 5 Imperative loves Charlestown.
I mean, is this the most sort of perfect example of a horse for course? This horse just turns into a different animal when he's here. He's pretty good normally, but he shows up to Charlestown and he's a world beater. Helps when you get some good pace in front of you.
Well, it's nice when a plan comes together, and the folks at Luch Stables entered 3, including the number 8, Cautious Giant, claimed out of a dirt sprint, I believe, at Santa Anita, and he's going to push the favorite, the defending champion in the race, Stanford, and he makes Stanford's jockey, John Velasquez, make a decision, and he uses Stanford. It takes a long time for John to get off the rail.
Yeah, and you know what? Like you say, it's nice when a plan comes together and works. Cautious Giant was ridden perfectly, did his job, and Johnny was in a tough spot. He got out over heels, and I think that was the best thing he could do. He was in a tough spot. I think he made the most of what he could. Unfortunately, I think it did kind of take its toll.
But this is a solid pace, aided by that rabbit up front. Stanford, also a bit of an unknown on a wet track, is now pushing. He's not worried about Cautious Giant. He'll eventually put him away. The problem is he's immediately set upon by the sharp number 4, Matt King Cole, who ran quite well.
I think this is a very, very important race for Matt King Cole going forward, because he's shown that he can handle the wet track. He's shown that he can handle different tracks all around, and he sticks around as part of the pace. He is the only piece that's there at the end.
Stanford's fighting real hard with Matt King Cole there, battling, and Imperative is still 5th. He's still got work to do. Remember, we have a very short stretch. We just passed the quarter pole, but he corners so well over this track, and he has a beautiful wet track pedigree. The Dam was a stakes winner on the wet, and Bernardini's a fantastic wet track sire. He's in full flight. The pace setters are tired. Imperative gets it done. He never gets it done by much, but he gets it done.
And that's all that matters in a race like this. He's in full flight now on the outside. War Story in between. Thought he ran pretty well, but boy, I have no knock against the top 3 at all. You see him coming across the wire here. I think all 3 of them ran very well.
96 Beyer speed figure for Imperative, now a 2-time winner of the Charlestown Classic. He has banked close to $3 million in his career, and he's getting going at the age of 7. This horse has bounced around. He was a $325,000 yearling buy. He was claimed for $50,000. Luch purchased him privately towards the end of last year, and I think they've realized, Bob Hess and the Luch and Imaginary folks, in Southern California, his running style doesn't play to the racetrack. He ran well at Gulfstream. We saw in that Poseidon when he took the measure of Stanford. He had some excuses in the Big Cap when they took him back to Southern California, but I think we'll see him on the East Coast. They mentioned the Met Mile as a potential next option.
At this point, what do you have to lose? It's not like this horse is getting embarrassed in any of these big races. I've never really believed 1.25 miles is what he wants, so I'm not holding that. And like you say, I think it's a valid point. Southern California, sometimes horses just don't appreciate that running style and that racing surface. If they choose to go to the Met, why not? I have no gripe with that.
Matt King Cole always has shown promise. He had a few little physical problems last year, but he's still a relatively lightly raced 4-year-old. This was his first class test. He made a bid into the hottest part of the pace, and he was still punching along late. Where do you think he fits best from a distance standpoint?
I don't know. I kind of feel like he's probably better off at 1 mile, but he ran just fine here, and when you consider the pace scenario, he was closest to it as far as the horses that finished close to the wire, close to the money anyway at the end. I don't know. Do you try the Met Mile with him? I don't think he's done anything to sort of dissuade you and make you think he needs a softer group to run against. The question then becomes, if it's not the Met, timing-wise, where do you go with him?
I guess
you're not going to go 1.25 miles, are you?
You're probably not going to go to 1.25 miles in a race like the Suburban. But I wonder if there are races at the Illman at Monmouth down the road there. If you want to sort of get that graded stakes win and a little bit of confidence into him, there are going to be some options for Matt King Cole, trained by a fantastic trainer in Linda Rice. I thought War Story ran really well, and I think this horse is in sneaky good form. He ran well in the Cigar Mile. He then came out of that with a nice graded stakes win. The Queen's County, I believe. I'm not sure that was a graded stake. There was a win at Aqueduct over the inner dirt. Ran perfectly fine in the Pegasus World Cup. He wasn't going to beat Arrogate. And then you mentioned in his last race coming into there, he had an excuse.
Yeah, he was just against the grain. The one-turn miles at Gulfstream Park, they were just so severely tilted toward the front end that he was just outrun. And I think a lot of that had to do with he'd never seen really speed like that, where they were going 45 and change through a half mile. He was just outrun. And at that point, he had no chance. Thought he had a chance coming into this spot. And he ran very well. I mean, no knocks. He, beaten by a half length. I wonder if he shows up in a race like the Met, because you know what? He's going to be a giant price. He probably deserves to be a giant price in the Met, but he's another one that on his best day, and in the recent form that he's in, why not?
Stanford got his goose cooked by Cautious Giant and then Matt King Cole, and I'm not sure he appreciated the wet track. I won't hold this race against him, but you get the feeling that he's a bit overrated due to his connections.
Certainly. I mean, whenever you see Pletcher and Velasquez, or Pletcher and Castellano, or Pletcher and Saez, whomever else is riding this horse, sure, he's going to take probably a little bit more money than he should. He's another one. I almost feel like it's a common theme with all of these runners. Where do you go now? Where do you go next? They tried Stanford in the Met Mile last year. I believe he was one of the favorites in there, right, and he just didn't get the job done. I don't think additional distance is his friend. I think a turnback is probably ideal, but I mean, do you want to try the Met again with him?
Sunny Ridge was a little bit of a disappointment, Matt, but I think you have excuses. He didn't have to like this configuration at Charlestown. Certainly didn't have to like the wet track. I have concerns about whether he's a true Grade 2, Grade 1 horse. There are races for him. I wonder if the Illman or races like the Salvatore Mile at Monmouth would work well for him, Jersey bred at his home track.
I was going to say, I mean, it just seems like all the stars align. I think that's probably where he belongs. You know, why can't you run in a race like the Salvatore Mile? It is a graded stake, but like you say, it's probably going to be a little bit softer. I think that's ultimately get him ready for Monmouth.
It's a very simplistic way to look at this race if you actually look at it just from the chart, but you see that 79-1 Bode Zatfa rallied to finish fourth. That makes me think that the pace was pretty hot, and it makes you want to upgrade Matt King Cole's performance. You could argue he ran one of the best races, if not the outright best.
And that's the other thing, too. Keep in mind, Matt King Cole isn't a horse that has a ton of racing. He's only had a few starts back since his comeback effort. I just think there's a lot to like about this horse going forward. The question now becomes, for everyone, as far as handicapping and for Linda Rice as a conditioner, where ultimately does he fit? Is he a miler? Does he want to go a little bit longer? Do you turn him all the way back to 7? He's got a big speed, he's got legitimate speed, and I think he's a legitimate talent.
96 Beyer speed figure for that hard-hitting 7-year-old Imperative, now a 2-time winner of the Charlestown Classic, and perhaps we'll see him in the Met Mile next.